Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of A Handful of Hope. I am so happy and grateful to have Kathleen with us today, who is an international transformational speaker, intuitive coach, and certified healer. Kathleen teaches how to revolutionize living through emotional, spiritual, and energetic processing. Clearing everything from deep trauma to habits of behavior, Kathleen has worked with large corporations, school systems, individuals, and in small, intimate group settings to bring swift and permanent change. For more than 25 years, Kathleen provided exceptional service to her community. She owned and operated several small businesses, was an elected legislator, served alongside Vermont Governor Douglas, and a successful lobbyist. As an elected official, she addressed the Israeli government and Brazilian parliament on women and minorities serving in government. Her life's work drastically refocused in March 2010 after her teenage son died by suicide. She became a Canfield Success Coach, a certified RIM emotional processing facilitator, and energy healer. Kathleen's life purpose is to educate, inspire, and empower those who have lost loved ones, suddenly and unexpectedly, and people who are living with limiting beliefs, blocks, and stuck emotions that prevent success. Kathleen, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Jesse, for having me. It's been a delight already.
Yeah, gosh, it has. And I have to tell you, Kathleen and I have been chatting for more than a few moments beforehand, and I was in tears probably 3.5 times and I had goosebumps at least 4.5 times. So I think this is going to be really special.
Yeah.
The question that came to me as I was reading through your bio there is one I think you could really, I don't know, I'm trusting in that to come throw to you right now. At the time of this recording, it's April 27th. We're right in the midst of the COVID corona crisis. Many of us are still locked down, sheltering in place, quarantine. There's so many different names. I don't know which one you're supposed to use now. There is a record unemployment in the US. There are people who have lost people because they've died from this disease. People are closing down businesses. People are very fearful. And one of the things I've been observing, and I'm hoping you could speak to this, is people are feeling guilty. They're feeling guilty because they're feeling so deeply, but they feel guilty because they're thinking that, well, my loss, what I'm going through, isn't as significant as someone else's. Right? My losing my job is not nearly as significant as so-and-so who just lost their grandma to this disease. And I'm wondering, the question that's coming to me with this is why do people go there, and how can we give ourselves permission to honor what we're feeling?
Yeah, what a great question, Jesse. People live in fear, and that's really what it's about. You know, they're just fearful. When they feel guilty, they're fearful. Really, my question back would be, is underneath that guilt, is it fear? Fear that they're going to lose a loved one, or they're going to lose their job, or some other fear that's really lying beneath that overlay of guilt. We often, including myself in the past, like when we feel guilty that we might have something more than others, it's really about comparing. And so how not to do that? It's to not compare yourself. You know, like we each have different experiences in our life. We all react or respond differently based on what we were taught at a very young age, and even before we come into this world. You know, like I believe strongly that our parents and our grandparents and what they go through, we carry in our DNA and we carry in our body. We also have past lives. From my perspective, there's past lives, and what's occurred in our past that we haven't resolved is within our body. And so all of that, including science involved, and when you're a very young child, from 0 to 5, some say 8, you start to develop how you're going to react or respond in the world based on what you were taught at that age. So, for example, shared earlier with Jesse, but you know, my birth father shot at me at 3 years old. You know, he was an abusive alcoholic, and he was angry, and you know, it wasn't just me, it was my sister, my mom, and we're hiding in the bathroom from him. So for most of my life, until I actually decided to step into my own fear and actually work through some of my own grief, it was I reacted to the world. If there was anger or loud voices, either I retreated or I went at them.
Mm.
There was like either I froze and protected myself, or if someone pushed me too much, then I was like right on you, and there was no way I was backing down. you know.
Mm.
And so I think what we're taught, we don't even realize we're reacting to what we were taught as a young child. And so, yeah, that's what I teach about healing. It's like, be willing to step into something that you don't know. Like, just because you think it, is it true?
Mm.
Is it true?
How
Did
do
I
you,
answer your question?
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know.
It brings up another one, Kathleen. How do you get to that point of making that decision? Because I think what you just said is so poignant. I think that so many of us busy ourselves with our lives. We choose
Mhm.
careers, we choose our relationships, we choose our habits and behaviors, not because they're the relationships we really want, the jobs we really want, the habits and behaviors we really want, which we have plenty of data to
Yeah.
back that up. 50+% of first marriages end in divorce, 60 something second, keeps going on in this country. We know that 60-80% of the people in the US are reported strong dislike or hate of their job. We know that heart disease is the biggest killer, most of which can be prevented by exercise and good nutrition. So we choose things, I think, not because there's stuff that we really want. I think that we choose things because we're trying to avoid, or they distract us from confronting what we really need to.
Exactly.
How does someone who's been in those places, who's grown up and had those challenging times, who may not even be aware that they're operating off of the decision they made when they were younger to survive, to protect, that they weren't enough, that they weren't deserving of love from their parents, whatever that was, how does someone get to a place like you did where you decided on a different path because you could have gone a different way, right? One of my things I've been occasionally dipping my toes in on this time is on Netflix. There's some series called I Am a Killer. And it's you go through, and every single one of these people who are in prison, I'm always fascinated by these psychology extremes.
Yeah.
You start to see an origin, they're going through similar stuff that you went through. So what was it that you did? How did you get yourself to a place to make that decision to choose a different
Mhm.
path?
Yeah. Great question. And I can't pinpoint a particular instant as I was growing up, but I knew at a very young age, like I just knew. I remember sitting, I don't know if it was in the closet or where I was because I was scared. I remember feeling and thinking, like this thought came into my head, there's got to be something more to life than this. Like there's just got to be. This can't be what life is about. And fortunately, I had an amazing stepdad that adopted me and became my dad eventually when I was in sixth grade. But my earlier years were pretty traumatic, and at that point, I just knew, like, so I had a drive within me. I don't know how it was, but I
Mm.
just had a drive within me to do more than what I was living. Like I kept thinking that there was more and more and more. And what drove me at that point was really the need to prove that I was worthy.
Mm.
Where other people may just give in to the victimhood of this is my life and I just need to live it because this is what life is. And so it's just like there just may be a little difference there. What honestly drove me to change my life was my son's suicide. Like that was, I knew when he took his life that either I was going to die with him or something else needed to change. Like I knew that I could not live with the emotional pain, the body pain, the guilt, the shame, the judgment, like all on me, the anger at myself, the expectations of what I should have done differently, and if
Mm.
only I had, and I should have saved my son. After all, I had all of these successes. How could I not save my son? Like all.
Yeah.
And what changed me was I knew that I needed to start healing. And so the first thing that started, like I would encourage whoever's watching this, if you're unhappy in your job, if you're unhappy in your marriage, if you have relationships with your children that are challenging, if you are masking your pain with over-exercising, overeating, overworking, whatever you're doing, the obsessive compulsive behavior, step into your fear just once and go do cognitive thought therapy. Or for me, I did cognitive thought therapy, which got me to a place where I could start thinking differently. Bless you. I could start thinking differently about my experiences in my life. And then I went through PTS treatment, post-traumatic stress treatment of like, okay, so what's really occurring here? So that post-traumatic stress wasn't necessarily my son's transition, but it was prompted by my son's transition. But what happened was I was able to deal with the childhood trauma that I hadn't dealt with yet, which I thought I had because I'd read all the self-help books. I went to seminars, like I went to mediums, I did all kinds of things. First, it's about believing that there's a connection much bigger than us, that our bodies are really packages that carries our souls, our spirit, and that when our bodies transition, doesn't mean that the souls and spirit go away. It's just that it frees our spirit. So we're more connected through energy. There's science that shows that energies, that we're all energy and that we're all connected. So believing that there's more is one. The second is do some energy healing. Just take the first step. Just spend an hour a week cognitively and consciously in your pain. Consciously face whatever you're facing. Consciously do that hour a week. You're living it, so you might as well consciously face it for a week, for an hour. Yeah.
I so appreciate you sharing that, because something that came to mind as you were sharing for me was, I remember getting to this point where I felt like I was so woke. I was so woke because I'd read all the books, I'd gone all the seminars, I'd done all the workshops, I was starting to teach people. I was so woke, and and then, one of the many lessons that death and loss has taught me was just how much I needed to wake up. It was just how much I needed to wake up, and how blind I had been in my wokeness to see that knowledge and experience were not one and the same. Knowledge and understanding were not one and the same. Knowledge and connection were not one and the same. And I want to explore that connection piece with you, because you said that it was really your son's taking his life that got you to really take a look at your life. And I'm wondering how has that connection with your son helped guide you to look at some of those, look deeper, give you maybe the courage to pull back the curtain and look at the fear that maybe before he did, you didn't have the courage because you were perhaps so caught in that, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to do? Going through the routine that we all go through. And I don't know if that even makes any sense, or if that's your.
It totally does. Yeah, it totally makes sense, Jesse. My son's transition, after he transitioned, I believed in the signs that I was getting from him. Like that was really part of how the connection started, is that I decided to sell my condo and move out of where I was. And I had just consciously said, Logan, is this the right thing? If it is, please just give me some messages that you're here with me and that I'm doing the right thing. And literally, I opened up the oven to clean it when there was a penny in there. And then I proceed through the kitchen and I open up the freezer and there's a penny in the freezer. And why that's so significant to me is that Logan lived in the kitchen. He loved to cook frozen chicken wings. Like that was one of his favorite foods. And he was always in the kitchen, always in the kitchen. And so to find a penny in the oven and a penny in the freezer, like who has pennies in the oven and freezer? You just don't. I mean, if you found a penny on the floor, then people could talk yourself out of it. There were those kinds of signs that I continued to get. I was I was laying on his bed playing a cribbage game on my phone because he and I used to play cribbage. And his cat, Hilton, stood at his threshold and wouldn't come into the room, which was very, very unusual for him. Hilton he was a love bug, always on me, always just loving. And he just kept looking in and yawling and then looking up like there's something in the room. And I'm like, it's okay, you can come in. And I knew Logan's spirit must have been in there. So I put the phone aside and I just watched and I said, come on, Hilton, you can come in. And suddenly Hilton catapults in the air going, wow, and just jumps with both of his feet in the air like he's touching Logan, like trying to catch Logan. And so I rolled over and I started crying. And then I felt Logan's spirit. I could, because it's so emotional. I truly felt Logan's spirit like spoon me and his arm come around me and hold on to me. And I just cried like a baby because his spirit was there. So it's believing that there's a connection, starting to believe these little signs that you start to see. And then I get the message when I was laying on his grave, like, if this happened in your life, you're meant to do it. And I'm just shortening that version because we only have so much time on this particular interview. So I started to believe the messages that I was getting. And then finally I realized as I started to dip my toe into the healing, and I truly was dipping my toe because there was quite a bit of healing to do. The onion was big and there are many layers that I needed to peel away, little by little. And each time I dipped my toe, each hour I spent in that excruciating pain, I came out lighter. I came out freer. I came out feeling differently. And I'm like, okay. So each time it gave me a little more hope. I'm like, okay. So if I only have to spend an hour doing this, then what else can I get, move through? And so what it did was I ended up finding the light that I was carrying within, that I was seeking on the outside all this time, by removing the darkness, the layers of pain, of guilt, of shame, of whatever you want to call it, whatever you're going through. And then once that light started to shine, I felt more connected than I've ever felt.
God, that's incredible. Do you think, Kathleen, that do we need to believe in the possibility of signs, or there are signs first, or do we need to be open to receiving and seeing signs? Is there a chicken and the egg in this? My curiosity is that, which do you think?
I think that there are signs there if you're willing to see them. So I don't know that you need to believe it. I think you just have to be open enough to know, to think, is it true? So there are books out there, and I wish I could remember Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer. Untethered Soul was his first book. His second book is called Surrender Experiment. Love, 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 love the book. He talks about just allowing the universe to guide him. And sometimes whatever he talks about how what's placed in front of you is your sign. It's just, are you willing to go with it or resist it? So a lot of times right now, I use the technology within my body. I listen to my body. And so if I'm resisting something and it doesn't feel good inside me, then I step back and say, okay, so what's not feeling good here? Is it really that I shouldn't move forward with this particular process? Or is it that I'm just resisting it because I'm scared? There's a different feeling, when your head's telling you one thing and your heart's telling you another, there's a contrast there. And that's really what I do, Jesse, is I help people move through some of that contrast to find their heart connection, It's like their heart connection. And when I feel like I'm on the journey that's the smoothest and the most my life purpose, that's when it's smoothest. If I feel like if I'm feeling a little off, I'm feeling irritated or something, I stop and I say, okay, so what's happening here? Am I still on my life purpose, or am I expanding out into things that really isn't mine to expand out into? You know,
Mm.
because I don't believe that we're ever on the wrong path. Absolutely do not believe that. Trust me, I've had plenty of experiences where a lot of people could say she was totally off her track.
Yeah,
She wasn't even on the
yeah,
path. However,
yeah.
I don't believe that there's wrong paths. I really believe that whatever we've experienced is part of our ability to heal through life, or to stay in the pain. You know, like
Mm.
I see our life as this tree trunk, and the leaves, limbs, the branches are all the different paths that we go. Doesn't mean they're wrong. They're still there. It's just
Mm.
like the easiest, most full connected path is really in the core of the tree. So where's your core? You know, is it your head or is it your heart? And how do you start listening to your heart?
I love that explanation.
Mm,
Kathleen, do you think
yeah,
everybody has a purpose?
absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind. Your purpose could be your purpose here on earth. You every moment. I think Kathleen Seeley, and I'm gonna just totally mess up the saying, but you never touch anybody too lightly to impact their lives. And it's totally messing. I'm
Yeah,
not good at repeating other people's
I know what you mean.
stories but
Yeah,
everybody touches somebody. Every time we move, every time we see someone, we are impacting someone's life.
I've been able to hear Kathleen say that a few times from
Mm-hmm.
stage, and every time I hear her say that, it's just I'm oh Kathleen, like just could you say that all day? Every time
Yeah.
you feel it, it's so she's so congruent when she says it too. It's just so incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a phrase or a tagline for her. It's something that you can tell it's her DNA that she's expressing.
Yeah. No, totally. It is deep within her, and she knows it. She lives it, and it is true. Like, we all have a purpose. Not all of us have a purpose to be the president of the United States, thankfully. We all have a purpose, though. We all have a purpose, and our purpose is to live that purpose. And when we're living our purpose, and we're happy, and we're connected with ourselves, some people may not like that, but maybe that's because they're not meant to be part of your inner circle, you know? Like, because when you're happy and you're serving from your heart, then everyone around you is going to have a better life. You're going to serve from a better
Mm.
place. When you serve because you want to, not because you feel like you have to get something, they're very different approaches. Because when you serve from your heart, everybody else around you feels that. So you impact their lives in a very, very different way. People feel the energy when someone gives because they think they're going to get something back from it. People feel that energy, whether they consciously do or not. They are subconsciously taking that in.
Going back to the tree, I love
Mm.
that metaphor, that image. And so people who are on the path, whichever path they're on, but they're realizing now that they're not far away from where they could be because it's all just a branch of the same tree.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that, or I don't know if there is a right way, but if we're on this branch over here, let's just play with this, and
Mm-hmm.
then where we really want to be is on this branch over here. To get here, is it more effective to tie the rope and Tarzan it over, to climb up over all the other branches to get there, or to go back down to the core, maybe even the root, and then climb back up
Mhm.
and approach it that way. Understanding that that third may seem like it might be a little bit slower initially. I mean, even as I'm
Mhm.
talking this question out to you, the
Mhm.
Tarzan thing seems like the least resistance, obviously. The going up
Or
and
not,
over, right? Which is the best
or
way?
not.
Yeah.
So the fastest way isn't always the best way,
Hmm.
you know, isn't always the best way. The smoothest, the most nurturing, the most, um, what I connect it to is the most peaceful and connected and joy-filled life, whatever that is the best. So say there's a goal and you want to be here, and as you start moving toward that goal, there's resistance, there's challenges, and you just keep pushing through. I'm going to go, I'm going to do this, this is what I'm doing. Well, maybe, just maybe, the universe has something bigger for you. Well, you want to be here, there's something over here for you that's much higher, much better.
Hmm.
Your purpose is a little different. So my purpose has shifted throughout the last 10 years. You know, it's been 10 years since Logan took his life. And my purpose when I started was, well, let me just stop and then go back. So let's stay with the tree for a moment. And so some people have to be all the way out to the very end of that very end of that tree limb and that branch and then that leaf, and then it breaks and you just fall to the ground.
Hmm.
That's the traumatic events in our lives. Those are the things that really shift our perspective. Those are the things that either will break you or will say, okay, something's got to change. So it just depends. Everyone's different. Everyone's process is different. Everyone's experiences are different. So I would love to answer that for you, but I don't think there's one answer, Jesse.
Yeah.
I think that it really depends on where you are in your life and what your experiences have been in this lifetime and in others. And you know, like, where are you supposed to be in this tree? Are you supposed to be just a little seedling?
Hmm.
Or are you supposed to be this big old oak tree that's had multiple lives and you just, like, you know, like you're just continuing to climb? Like, there's just different energy levels. And yeah. Um, so sometimes trauma will make you find your path back to the core of your being. Sometimes that path is just smoother, and it just keeps going. I think the more that you listen to how you're feeling internally, not your head. Your head, you know, your brain just can goes. Do you, like, I might get these stats wrong, but it's gonna be something similar. Your conscious being wants to change. That's why you read self-help books. That's why you want to do better. And your subconscious thinks 70 times faster. I think it's 70 times. I could be wrong with that number, but it's significantly faster than your conscious. Your subconscious is what your learned behaviors are. So that's why people don't succeed with New Year's resolutions. That's why people, you know, go on diets and 5 weeks later they're off, or 5 days later they're off, or 5 hours later, you know, like that. Your subconscious is feeding your brain of saying, oh, you can't do that. No, that's not meant for you. This is the way we've always done it. Let's just keep doing this. So your subconscious is the what you've been taught, childhood trauma, you know, like. And so actually going in there, you know, I use RIM and I use other healing things, but these two are, and shamanic practices, and there's just so many ways to naturally work through your limiting beliefs, your patterns, your blocks. You know, there's so many ways to work through that. My way may not be your way.
Hmm.
Try what works for you. Just keep trying. Just keep trying the natural way, not masking it. Not masking it. Masking it just compounds it. The more you avoid it, the more it's going to be there. The more you're going to create additional challenging situations for yourself until it just blows up and you end up in a traumatic place that you don't have to be. You know, I like to say my teaching moments have been falling off the cliff and picking up the pieces and coming back. You know, like, I tend to take the harder road, you know, the branch is falling off and starting all over again, like that's been a process of mine. So hopefully now that's not, but yeah.
Yeah. I've often found that once we've fallen a few times from the branch and we give ourselves permission to stop calling ourselves idiot and stupid and all those kinds of things, and
Mhm.
God, you did it again, you're a total idiot, why do you think you could climb? It gives us the
Mhm.
ability to pause, take a breath, and realize that all those branches that we've broken, we can now collect them and build a ladder with them.
Yeah, it's beautiful, Jesse. Oh my gosh, that's perfect. I love it. And
Yeah.
that's very true. It's very true. And you go beyond where you were before. My
Yeah.
son's transition has given me the gift of just realizing what life can really be like.
Hmm.
It can be joyful, it can be fulfilled, and it can be love filled and forgiving. You know, it's amazing. Life is amazing if you're willing to look at it as a healing journey instead of a painful process, because it's a journey. No
Hmm.
matter how woke we are, I love that. I used to think I was woke, and then it was like, wow, wham, there you go. You
Yeah.
think you're
Yeah.
so good now?
Yeah. I wish I could
So
say I learned the lesson right away the first time too, and it's still.
it's a healing journey. Like life is a healing journey. If you look at it as a healing journey, then you find so many amazing things for you. It's all just waiting there for you. You don't have to live in the pain.
Kathleen, we only have a minute left, and I could easily keep talking to you for much longer. So let's end with one final question. What is what do you believe Logan's wish is for you and how you show up and live every day?
Wow. Um, his wish is he wants me to be of service. He wants me to live a love filled life, starting from myself.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you, Jesse. It's beautiful. Very nice question.
Yeah. Well, everyone, I don't know how we transition from that, but we're going to have to, unfortunately. I encourage you to watch, rewatch, and I often will say take notes. And with this one, I might take notice instead of notes. Take notes too. There's a lot to be gained here, but take notice if you rewatch it the first time and re-listen. Take notice of how you feel. Take notice of how you experience. Take notice of how Kathleen's journey may parallel yours. Take notice of some of the energetic exchanges here that we had that you likely felt as well. Take notice in just what she said and how she said it and how it resonated with you. You've heard me mention on these before that I don't really call goosebumps as much as I call them truth bumps now. And really take
Mhm.
notice on what impacted you and why. There's so much to be gained from what was just shared here. And incidentally, when we talk about, we shared some conversations around the loss of a human, but loss can also be the loss of a job, a loss of identity. There are all different degrees of this. And so if you resonated with this, going back to where we started in the beginning about people maybe feeling guilt about what they're feeling, give yourself permission to feel. Give yourself permission to notice what resonated with you. And as Kathleen said, give yourself permission to start to do the work. She talked about a host of modalities, excuse me, and tools that she's explored and practices and teaches now. Be willing to be your own guinea pig and dip your toe, as she so perfectly said, into different things and see which water is right for you. But the most important thing is start dipping that toe. One of the great gifts that, in my opinion, that can come from a time of loss is it gives us really a gift of perspective. And many of you who might be sitting in fear, stress, anxiety right now, perhaps this is the most important time of your life to ask yourself what truly matters most. What truly matters most, and do I really want whatever the new future will be? Because it will certainly be different than the past has been. What do you want the new future to be? How do you want it to be different from the past? I think Kathleen said so beautifully there at the end is if we make it a journey of healing versus a journey of pain, life can really be magical. And this conversation has been absolutely magical. I will treasure it for the rest of the day. I will cry happy, joyous, just deeply emotional tears throughout the day to day because this one really touched my soul in many ways. And Kathleen, you're absolutely incredible. I appreciate so much you being here and sharing with us. Thank you.
I so appreciate you, Jesse. Thank you.
Absolutely. We will see you next time, everybody, on another edition of A Handful of Hope. Bye-bye.